You're listening to Rowan Radio On Demand. Download more podcasts at rowanradio.com.
The following program does not represent the views or opinions of the staff or administration of Rowan University or Rowan Radio, 89.7 WGLS-FM.
Rowan Radio, 89.7 WGLS-FM proudly presents A Community Affair, a weekly program where we discuss with national and local newsmakers important issues that impact our community. And now, here's your host, WGLS-FM Public Affairs Director, Katie Klein.
You're listening to A Community Affair, and I'm your host, Katie Klein. It's back to school time, and bullying is a big issue within schools still. My next guest, Joffrey McClung, thinks that teaching children empathy at home is the best prevention for bullying. Joffrey McClung is a personal growth author, self-love teacher, and common sense activist that looks at today's anger and incivility as a cry for help and fears if left unanswered, it will only grow in its intense negativity, impacting not only the quality of our personal lives, but our society as a whole. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Katie. I'm glad to be here.
So why do you think teaching empathy is the best way to fight bullying?
Well, bullying basically comes out of a sense of feeling worthless, not mattering, which forms a self-loathing cycle for people. So really, if you can go back to the compassion, to the empathy, you'll be able to stop that feeling when your child or even yourself is starting to feel powerless and you want to act out. You can go, wait a minute, let me stop myself. So really the compassion, empathy, connection to others are three common sense lessons that if they're practiced daily in your life, in your home, it'll help stop bullying and also give you some compassion for the bully, which may help you reach out to that person as well.
And what do you think common sense has to do with empathy?
Well, common sense is basically defined as good judgment. So anything with good judgment makes life easier and better for yourself. And then if you have shared common sense with society, it makes life easier and better for everyone involved. So having a more compassionate, empathetic society is good for everyone. So basically, common sense is good judgment, and compassion is a good judgment call for everybody.
You mentioned that you had 3 common sense lessons that you think can expand our compassion, empathy, connections to others. What are those lessons?
Oh, yeah, they're definitely something very easy, something that we all were taught, but we seem to have forgotten in this fast-paced life. First one I call the game of lacing up. Now, this is a lesson in compassion by walking in someone else's shoes. We all know that phrase, but we rarely practice it these days. So what you're going to do is if somebody in your family, adult as well as a child, is starting to being critical or judgmental of someone else, you're going to call lacing up time. Lacing up time, Mom. You're going to sit down together, and you're going to use your imagination. We all have one. Let's use it for something good. You're going to use your imagination to start to understand what is happening in that person's life to make them act that way. Why would they be that way? So that you can start to have some compassion of why that person may be acting the way you are, that you're judging. So you're going to start to call lacing up time. Walk in someone else's shoes before you judge someone. It really will stop that judgment and transform it into compassion. Now, the second one is called practicing the power of I am sorry. Now, this is a lesson in connecting by gaining trust. Katie, you cannot connect with someone you don't trust, and frankly, you can't trust someone who refuses to admit they made a mistake and offer you a sincere apology. Now, this lesson, interestingly enough, was taught to me by my dad. We'd had an argument when I was younger. I was about 7 years old, and I was very angry, and I was in my room. I slammed my door shut. And I was sitting there fuming, hurt and angry. And then I heard a knock on the door. And my dad came in. And he stood there and he apologized to this little 7-year-old girl and said he had made a mistake and he was so sorry. In that moment, I had 2 lessons I learned. 1, apologizing is not weakness. It's quite the opposite. And 2, in that moment, I trusted my father more than I ever had, and that just grew through the years. So you're going to mirror that for everyone in your family and your friend as well. When you make a mistake, pull up your pants and say, I'm sorry that it impacted you negatively. We need to do a lot more of that. We don't have to make excuses for the mistake or say, well, you shouldn't be upset by it. Just knowing that that person's upset and offer a sincere apology. It's not that hard, is it, Katie? Really?
I don't think it is. I feel like a lot of people do, though. So how do people force themselves to apologize or stop seeing it as weakness? Because a lot of people really don't apologize when they're wrong. They just go, or make an excuse for their actions instead of apologizing for how they made the other person feel.
Well, you're not going to change anybody else. So all you can do is, first of all, is yourself. Mm-hmm. And realize that when you're refusing to apologize and you're breaking a trust with that person, and usually it's dealing with somebody that's a friend or a coworker or a colleague, so somebody you have a relationship with, and you want to keep that relationship. So once you realize that by you not doing that, you're breaking a trust with them. It's not about being right now. Now it's about trust, and they're not going to trust you as much. And if that's something they're really willing to give away so easily over some really silly mistakes, most mistakes are silly. And maybe you hurt somebody's feeling you didn't mean to. All right, just admit it. Just say, I didn't realize that. Don't say, it's your, I'm sorry you feel that way. I love that phrase. I'm sorry you feel that way. That's really saying you shouldn't be feeling that way, which we all know is a little bit of a dig. Just say, I'm sorry I impacted you. That's all you have to do. But the main thing, Katie, in that instance is you can't change anybody else to make them say I'm sorry, but you can start to notice where you don't do it and say, I'm going to do that today. Even if it's something silly, I'm going to immediately, you just start practicing. Any discipline takes practice. You just make it a conscious choice. Today, when I make a mistake or I bump into somebody or whatever it is, I'm going to apologize. And you start to make it part of your everyday way of being. And it will happen for you. I promise you it will change. Just takes practice. You got to be conscious of it and then practice it. Those two things. And then I want to forget the third one, because it's really important, especially in this environment. And this is called the 7-day challenge of taking the fear out of the unknown. Now, this is a lesson in empathy by transforming fear with knowledge and understanding, which creates a space, therefore, for empathy, which we definitely need more because there seems to be a lot of fear behavior going on. So this one's real simple. You see somebody on the street or somebody just come to school that's different than your child or something, like I said, on the street. They're different. They wear different clothes. They have a different accent. They behave differently, different rituals, whatever it might be that's different or strange or weird to you. You're going to take the challenge for 7 days, and every day you're going to come home and you're going to have learned something new about that person. So if it's somebody new at your kid's school, your kid's going to have to go and talk to that person and find something new about that person to come home and tell you about. If it's somebody that you saw on the street or on television or in a movie, you're going to have to go online and do a little research about that particular clothing or that accent or that religion or whatever it might be. For 7 days, you're going to learn something new each day about that person. And I guarantee by the end of that week, that person's no longer going to be strange or weird. You're going to have begun to humanize them. And when you make someone human, you're able to have much more empathy with them. So these are very simple things. I'm sure your parents taught you some of these things, or different churches or temples or mosques or wherever you went. We all learn these things, but just don't practice them. We don't make them common sense anymore. We've got to do it, Sadie. We've got to do it, people.
What do you think the impact on society would be if more people followed those 3 steps?
Oh, I think, first of all, we wouldn't be just having knee-jerk reactions. So many things are happening just in knee-jerk, and you go home and you realize, I really wish I hadn't done that. I don't know if you're guilty of that, but I've been guilty of that in the past. Why did I just blurt that out? Why did I just, reactive behavior? When you start to become conscious and aware of your behavior, in other words, I'm not feeling compassion here, I'm just being a bully here myself. Once you start that little chain in your mind, you begin to notice other things in your behavior. So really, that self-awareness. So when we have that self-awareness and we start to have compassion and empathy and connection, all of a sudden we're not reactive. And that's 90% of what's going on is reactive behavior. It's not behavior you thought about that you really stand behind. It's just you're reacting because you're feeling pushed against or you're feeling powerless. When you realize, I do have power, I can make choices, those things start to go away. And it really, I hate to say this, but it kind of goes back to self-love. Because as we know, the bully is lacking in self-love. Psychologists have ample evidence of that. When there's self-loathing or self-worthlessness, you tend to see everyone as your enemy, and you don't have great, healthy, loving relationships. But when you do practice self-love, which involves compassion and empathy and whatnot, you tend to offer that same love to others. For instance, let's say you've done some homework on your self-love and you learn to be compassionate with yourself. for your stumbles or mistakes in life versus beating yourself up, which, we all can do. But when you somebody go, you know what, I did the best I could with what I knew, you start to practice compassion, suddenly you are so much more compassionate with other people when they stumble or make mistakes because you understand where they're coming from. So then what you give yourself, you're able to give to others. Same thing with self-acceptance. When you accept flaws or weaknesses in yourself, you are able to accept flaws and weaknesses in others and not use them to define that person. So it's really kind of what you give yourself, you give to others. So there's this big kind of circle, and that's the bully's involved in there as well. And we all have to own that we have played the bully in our lives and start to take that back. And we're like, I need to practice that compassion with myself and therefore with others. Does that make any sense for you?
Yes, it does. So with self-love, when people don't have any, how do they start developing it within themselves?
Well, I think first of all, I say you don't have it because I think a lot of people don't admit it. And it's funny, Katie, the ones that are the biggest blusters that, I love myself and I'm so big and they're big bravado, they tend to be the ones that really lack it the most, which I find very interesting because they're shouting. I think, what's the old Shakespeare, thou just protest too much. So first admit that I can expand it because there's not a human being that I've met that cannot expand in their sense of self-love. So I think the first thing is to say, what is self-love? Because we go, what does that mean? Does that mean I take myself to a spa day or I do this? Those are actions. Self-love is a state of being. So you define self-love, and the way I define it in my book is, number one, you are worthy of love. You're lovable. You are worthy of love. The fact you exist, you are worthy of love. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to show you deserve it. You just are worthy of love. Number two, you are more than good enough in your expression of your love. And your expression of your love can be your creativity, through your career, your relationships. How you express yourself is good enough. And the third component of self-love is that if you are here, you must know that you are valuable and that you matter. And those have to come from within. We have to stop looking for those outside of ourselves. That's where we get into trouble. If you're looking for your value in your job or in your relationship, you are going to stumble and fall and hit a wall because things change. People change. And you're also asking somebody who probably lacks in self-love to bolster your self-love. So it doesn't really work, Katie. You got self-love. Again, self is the key component here. You have to learn to give it yourself. You have got to ask yourself some questions. Now, it's a long process in the sense of asking yourself questions. Why do I believe this about myself? Who told me that? And in my book, I have all the questions you need to ask. I'm not trying to out my book here, but there's ways to ask yourself questions. Start to ask, why do I believe this about myself? Who told me that? And why do I give them the power to define me? So number one, ask yourself questions. That is a big thing because you can start to realize I took something as truth that really was just somebody else's statement. That's taking your power back from somebody else.
How can parents raise their children to have that self-love right off the bat so they don't have to work on it? It's just a natural base thing.
Well, I'd say make it a priority and make it very clear that their value and their worth and their expression of their being is good enough. It's not about the A on the test. Doesn't mean you don't want to go for an A. But who they are, what they are, is good enough. And sometimes you're going to be more one way than another way, and that's good enough that day as well. So start to practice that they're good enough just as they are, and give them space to explore who they are, number one, versus trying to tell them who they are. They're learning who they are, so give them space to find out who they are, and that it's good enough. And they're going to stumble and make mistakes along the way, and allow them to do that. And show them that sense of compassion. Mirror it for them. I'm telling you, parents, mirror what you want to see in your kids. If you want to see them accepting themselves, then you make sure you're doing the same thing. Don't stand in front of the mirror and talk about how fat you are and how ugly you are because you don't have the perfect body. Stop it. Your children are watching that. Stand there and go, what a great body. It dances, it moves, it allows me to do this and that, and start to mirror that for them. And you may have to do your own self-love on your own if you're, having body shaming yourself. But don't mirror it for your kids. Same thing with the father. Don't mirror that you're not allowed to say I'm sorry or you're not allowed to cry. That's not what boys do. Show them, yes, they do. We do cry. We do have emotions. We do feel. Start to mirror those things so they'll start to accept themselves and all their components of themselves. So really, for parents, it's about mirroring what you want to see in your kids, frankly. and giving them the space to practice those things of compassion, forgiveness, and accepting. So when a kid makes a mistake, allow them, help them to accept that it's okay. They did the best they could. It's okay to have that compassion and name it. You need to have some compassion for yourself. You need to start nurturing yourself. Self-nurturing is another biggie. Learn how to give yourself some love. To tell yourself, and teach them self-talk. Literally, stand in front of the mirror and say, I am great. I'm good enough. I love myself. I'm getting better and better. It sounds phony and crazy. But Katie, we all talk in our heads all day long. We just don't admit it to people. And usually it's critical. Gosh, you didn't do that right. Gosh, hope they don't notice I didn't do that well. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. That was dumb. That kind of self-talk, I think we all do it. Start to teach your kids how to do loving self-talk. That's a big clue to that too. And then buy my book.
That will give all the lessons. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more from Joffrey McClung right here on the Community Affair on Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM. And we're back on the Community Affair. I'm your host, Katie Klein, and today we are here with Joffrey McClung to talk about raising children to develop more empathy. So if somebody's child is already a bully, say they're like 15 and they're really, really mean to people, and it seems like there's not really a way to fix it, what can they do?
Well, you sort of set that up for me, didn't there? There's not a way to fix it.
There's not a way to fix it.
They haven't found a way to fix it, let's say that way.
Yeah, but do you think there's hope then at all for the person if they don't have a supportive home environment that will nurture them in the way that
that's a different issue. If they don't have a home environment, that is a problem. They need to turn to another adult in their vicinity. They need to turn to a teacher, a coach. If they go to church or a temple or a mosque, turn to those people and the elders in that environment. They need to turn to someone and tell them that they're full of anger or rage or hurt. Most children won't tell you that they're hurt, but if they're full of anger and rage, what they're really full of is hurt. Anger is a masking emotion. What's underneath anger is always hurt. And what's underneath that with a bully is always that I don't matter. I'm not worthy of love. Somehow I was made different than everybody else. Something's wrong with me. And I got news for you. We all go through that process of thinking deep in our hearts. If you're half conscious, and maybe you're not the age yet, Katie, but most of us are going to hit a point and think, what's wrong with me? Something's not right like everybody else. You need to turn to somebody if your parents aren't there for you. Reach out, take the bravery, reach out to somebody and say, I need help with these emotions. I need help with these thoughts. Now, if you do have loving parents, and if they're 15, now, first of all, if you can afford it, go to therapy. I mean, at 15, it's gone that far and that long, been unaddressed. You need some professional help. So I do want to say that up front. But if it's somebody who just acts out occasionally and they're not, they can be kinder than they're acting, parent needs to realize, again, that's coming from a place of hurt and a place that they're not feeling very valuable. They're not feeling very worthy of love. They're not feeling they matter. So rather than trying to bully the kid into stop being a bully, first of all, stop that, parents. You're really marrying for them to be more of a bully. You need to start doing some compassion with them and making a safe space for them to share their feelings with you. And you really take the time to hear them and say, why do you think you don't matter? And bring up the subject that bluntly. Now, they're going to fight you on it for a while, but eventually you'll get through it.
Do you feel like that maybe bullies mistake self-love with putting others down to make themselves feel better? I just connected that together in my head a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if you're hurting, I mean, if you go through your process of looking back at your life, you realize the time, do you act it out? We've all acted out against it. We're always three things. We were feeling powerless in that moment, so we act out. 2, we feel invisible, so we act out. And 3, we don't feel loved, or we feel unlovable in that moment. Those 3 things are active usually when you're acting out. So yes, a bully will act out because they don't know what else to do. Because they feel invisible, they feel powerless about anything to do it, and they don't feel loved. So darn it, they're gonna go and they're gonna tear someone down. And maybe they'll feel as bad because you want them to feel as bad as you feel. That's pretty much what I acted out whenever I was a kid. I didn't do a lot of it, but the times I was in elementary school, usually it was out of that. Well, you made me feel bad, so I'm gonna make you feel bad. Always comes from hurt and pain. Unless you're a sociopath, and that's way off my grade. My pay grade. If you're in that area, it comes from hurt and pain, and that's where you need to address it. not with shame or guilt. And that's where parents need to be really, really active in the life. Your kid is in pain and they're hurt. You're acting out for that reason. And they need to make that safe space. Don't shame them. Don't scold them. Yes, obviously you want to stop them if they're hurting someone. But really say, we want to help you. But, yeah, you do it for a sense of power. It gives you a sense of, I can at least do that. Because I can't make anybody love me or see me as worthy, so I can at least strike out and hurt somebody. It kind of makes sense, in a wacky way. But it does make sense.
Do you think that as a whole we have an empathy problem?
I think as a whole we are stuck in an anger loop right now. Between politics, everything going on, there's a big fear and anger loop going on. So empathy seems to be at the bottom of the barrel of what we consider important right now. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the common sense. What is common sense have to do with empathy and compassion and whatnot? Common sense is that shared judgment and for everybody to have a win-win situation. So life's easier and better for everyone involved. When you have anger and fear and victimhood and powerlessness, good judgment goes out the window, and that win-lose mentality takes over. So there's no room for empathy or compassion there, because it's about winning and you losing. I need to be right. It's more important than compromise. I need to be in control, which is more important than shared responsibility or an outcome. I need to judge and criticize, which is much more important than accepting you that you're different, but it's okay that you're different. Winning, it becomes everything, and making you the loser becomes the most important thing. So empathy right now is sort of at the bottom of the barrel, but I happen to be one of those optimists who believes in humanity and believes in our goodness in our hearts. And I think we're just kind of having a big mirror for us to say, okay, here's some of our shadow, our lack of empathy, our lack of feeling worthy of love and that we're good enough. And here's a big shadow for you to look at it square in the face. And this is what it looks like when it's active, when there's bullies everywhere around you. What do you want to do about it? Well, we've got a choice. We go back to empathy and compassion, or we go to the bullying energy. I have faith we're going to choose the empathy and compassion and the kindness and choosing that energy, compromise. I just think it's a learning curve right now. We're in the midst of a learning curve. And no, it doesn't take everybody. It just takes a certain amount to make that shift, to go back to being a kind society, an inclusive society. And I happen to believe we're going to do it. We're going to do it, people.
This is a wake-up call for people to be kind, then.
Mm-hmm.
To shorten it.
Wake-up call. Own your own responsibility in the energy that's going on right now. Where do you go and shout in somebody's face that you're wrong and I'm right? Well, stop it. Stop. That person's probably your friend or a colleague. It's not that important to be right. It's more important that you go and share a coffee together right now and see what you have in common. So you need to own your part in the energy that's happening of this bullying energy that's going on. I always say when people try to talk about politics, I always say they're just mirroring for us, ourselves. That's all they are. They're a mirror of ourselves.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, so just look at where you do it, where you're not accepting of others' differences. Where do you judge others? Where do you catch that judging when you're with groups and you start laughing at other people? Why do you participate? Maybe step back and go, I don't need to do that. I'm good enough. I don't need to. When you judge somebody, you're basically what you're saying is, I need to put someone down to feel better about myself. That is the essence of judgment. I call it in the book safety nets. We all go to safety nets when we're not feeling that self-love. And judgment's a big one. Needing to be right is another one. A safety net we do when we're not feeling valuable in ourselves. Again, it's looking outside of ourselves for everything versus inside of ourselves. So let's everybody start to own our part in this energy. And quit shouting and quit needing to be right, quit playing the judgment game. It's a lot more fun when you don't play it, I guarantee you. Now, I'm older than you, so I've had a lot longer on it, but I can tell you, having come out the other side of it, it's a lot better not being in that judgment and that criticism and knowing that the feelings I have about myself and self-love, I know are true about everybody else too, that they're worthy of love. It's a lot better space than trying to fight for your piece of the pie. There's more than enough for everybody, people. There really is. God, we got kind of deep there, didn't we?
I liked it. I agreed with all of that.
Okay.
So one last question. How do you think individually we can try to shift society maybe towards a more kind and empathetic society just by following these steps and being more kind by ourselves?
Well, I think the whole conversation, we've sort of been, wrapping ourselves around it in a sense, but One, take responsibility. Number one. Own to yourself. You don't tell anybody else, but you certainly tell yourself, I didn't do that well today. I was kind of pushy with somebody, or I fought for my right here. Number two, start looking at your own self-love. Start looking at how you really feel about yourself, and start to change some of that. Start to realize that some of these things you picked up along the way, and they're not true. You are good enough. You are powerful. You are here to express who you are. We all need everybody to express who they are just as they are. We are all good enough, and we all are in this game of consciousness together. So, and then every day say, I'm going to be kind today, and make it a goal. Literally, it's practicing. It's working that muscle. Just like these games I gave you earlier, it's working that muscle. Gosh, I just was really critical of that person. Let me sit here and close my eyes and think about what must be going on in their life for them to have been snappy at the grocery store. Gosh, if I had 5 kids and they were around me, I'd probably be snappy too. Takes you right out of it. Start to practice some of these things. Again, make it a priority. I want a kinder world, therefore I need to be kinder. That's all it takes, people. Decide what kind of world you want and start to be it. Again, a little deep there, but there we go.
No, I love that. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Well, thanks, Katie, for having me, and have a great day. Practice a little self-love along the way. Never hurts.
I will. Thank you. You're listening to Rowan Radio On Demand. Download more podcasts at rowanradio.com.